The kettle clicks off, the bag goes in the cup, the water goes on, the milk waits by the fridge, and for 2 quiet minutes the world can jolly well look after itself. The cuppa. New Zealand runs on it. We drink millions of cups a day, we offer it to the grieving and the celebrating alike, and we trust it the way we trust the tap and the sunrise. But this old grandpa has spent weeks reading laboratory studies about what is actually steeping in that cup, and I need you to put the biscuit down. There is plastic in the bags, and it does not stay in the bags. There are pesticide files on the biggest names in the aisle. There are heavy metals the tea plant pulls up all by itself. 11 brands are getting named today. Nobody else will tell you this over a cuppa, so I will. Go ahead and subscribe, I'll tell you everything. Number 11. Woolworth's own brand tea. We start, as this channel always starts, with the house brand, the plain box at the bottom of the shelf, 100 bags for a handful of coins. And the first question with any tea this cheap is the same question we asked about the flour and the sausages. What exactly is in it, and who decided? Budget black tea is blended commodity tea, bought on the global bulk market from whichever estates in whichever countries offered the lowest price this season, blended for consistency, and packed into anonymous bags. The box says black tea, and that is honestly about all it is prepared to commit to. No origin, no estate, no harvest, no transparency, because at this price transparency is not in the budget. But here is what got the house brands onto this list ahead of their usual spot. When Consumer NZ surveyed 17 tea distributors back in 2019, asking a simple question, is there plastic in your tea bags? The supermarket own brand bags were among those found to contain synthetic fibers in the bag material itself. Synthetic fibers in the bag that goes in the boiling water that you drink. Hold that thought, because the science of what happens when plastic meets boiling water is coming at number 10, and it is the single most important thing in this video. For now, just sit with the design decision. The cheapest possible tea, in a bag spun partly from plastic, sold by a duopoly the Commerce Commission has already told us, is not working in your interest. To be steeped in water at 100 degrees, every day, in half the kitchens in this country. Someone signed that off, mate. Nobody asked you. Number 10. Pam's Tea. The Foodstuffs house brand, and everything I just said about anonymous commodity blending applies here identically, so let me use the Pam's box to deliver the microplastic science I promised, because this is the study that changed how this grandpa looks at the tea aisle forever. In 2019, researchers at McGill University in Canada did something beautifully simple. They took plastic tea bags, emptied out the tea, put the empty bags in water at brewing temperature, 95 degrees, and then counted what came off the bag into the water. The results were published in the journal Environmental Science and Technology, and the numbers stopped scientists in their corridors. A single plastic tea bag released approximately 11.6 billion microplastic particles into the single cup of water. Billion, with a B. Plus another 3.1 billion even smaller nanoplastic particles, small enough to pass through cell walls, from one bag, in one cup. Now the tea industry will correctly point out that those were fully plastic mesh bags, the silky pyramid kind, and that most paper bags are mostly paper. Mostly, because here is what the Consumer NZ survey found about the mostly. Standard paper tea bags across a swathe of familiar brands are heat-sealed with polypropylene, a plastic woven into or coated onto the bag so the edges melt shut in the factory. Polypropylene, in the paper, in the boiling water, less plastic than the mesh pyramids, certainly. 0 is a different number, mate, and 0 is what your grandmother's teapot delivered with no engineering at all. Science is still working out what a lifetime of swallowed microplastics does to a human body, and the early research on where these particles turn up, in blood, in organs, in places they were never meant to be, is not the sort of bedtime reading that helps an old man sleep. Number 9. PG Tips. The famous British brand with the monkey adverts and the pyramid bags, sold all over New Zealand supermarkets. PG Tips built its modern marketing on that pyramid bag, more room for the leaves to move, a better brew, and for years those pyramid bags were exactly the kind of plastic mesh the McGill study poured boiling water over. Under public pressure, the brand moved toward plant-based bag materials, corn-based plastic, and that word plant-based is doing some very heavy lifting, so let us unpack it once, here, and it will serve us for the rest of the video. Corn-based plastic, polylactic acid, PLA, is still a plastic. It is a polymer, spun from plant sugars instead of oil, and the marketing calls it biodegradable and compostable. What the marketing does not tell you is the fine print consumer NZ spelled out. PLA breaks down only at the sustained high temperatures of industrial composting facilities, temperatures your home compost heap does not reliably reach, and New Zealand's curbside systems mostly cannot process it. So the compostable bag in your green bin is very likely just landfill, with better public relations. And in your cup, at brewing temperature, PLA is still a synthetic polymer sitting in near boiling water, and the research on exactly what PLA sheds under those conditions is young. The industry swapped a plastic you had heard of for a plastic you had not, wrapped it in a green leaf logo, and called the problem solved. That is not solving a problem, mate. That is rebranding one. And while the PG tips box is in your hand, learn one more word the tea industry hopes you never look up. Epichlorohydrin. It is an industrial chemical used to give some tea bag papers their wet strength, so the bag does not dissolve in your cup, and it is classified overseas as a probable human carcinogen in its raw form. In the bag paper it exists in treated, reacted form, and the industry position is that any residues are minute and within limits, and by now you can recite this old grandpa's reply in your sleep. Minute, within limits, per bag. Nobody regulates per lifetime, and a Kiwi tea drinker on 5 cups a day steeps north of 1,800 bags a year, year after year, for 60 adult years. That is over 100,000 little paper envelopes of within limits chemistry, dunked in boiling water and pressed against the spoon. The regulators assess the bag. Nobody has ever assessed the habit. Number 8. Hiltheries Herbal Teas. Old friends of this channel will remember Hiltheries from the flower video, the heritage Kiwi health brand owned, since 2016, by a consortium led by Shanghai Pharmaceuticals through the Vitico acquisition, $314 million, and the health halo has been earning its keep ever since. Today it is the herbal tea wall, chamomile, peppermint, detox blends, sleep blends, and this entry is not really about one brand, it is about the entire herbal category, because herbal teas carry a contamination problem that almost no shopper has ever heard named: pyrrolizidine alkaloids. Pyrrolizidine alkaloids are natural toxins produced by certain weeds, and they are seriously nasty, genuinely liver toxic, and classified as genotoxic carcinogens by European food safety scientists. The weeds that make them grow in and among herbal crops get harvested accidentally along with the chamomile or the borage or the mixed herbs, and end up dried and shredded in the blend. The European Food Safety Authority has assessed them repeatedly. European regulators have set maximum limits and issued recalls, and surveys overseas kept finding herbal teas among the main dietary sources. It is a known, documented, regulated problem in Europe. Here, the category sells on pictures of moonlight and lavender. The word natural does its usual anesthetic work, and the testing regime is a fraction of what the European limits demand. Natural, this old grandpa reminds you for the 100th time, is not a safety claim. Hemlock is natural. The question is never whether the plant is natural. The question is which plants are in the bag, including the ones nobody meant to harvest, and on that question the shiny boxes are silent. Number 7. Red Seal. Red Seal is one of the grand old names of New Zealand natural health, on the shelves since 1923, and its teas wear that heritage like a woolen cardigan. So here is your ownership story for this entry, because there is always one. Red Seal was bought in 2015 by China Resources, a giant state-owned Chinese conglomerate, through its subsidiary, a brand whose entire identity is trust, Kiwi heritage, and natural goodness, has for a decade now been answerable to a state-owned enterprise headquartered offshore, and the label breathes not a word of it. You know this channel's position by now. Foreign ownership is not a crime, but when the product is trust itself, the customer deserves to know who is holding it. And on the product, Red Seal sat in the Consumer NZ survey, among the brands using PLA, the plant-based plastic we have already met, in its bag seals, with standard bags stated to be plastic-free. A mixed picture, which in fairness beats the worst of the aisle. But the herbal ranges carry the same pyrrolizidine alkaloid category risk as every herbal wall. The detox and wellness blends carry health implications no regulator has ever signed off. And the heritage branding does what heritage branding always does. It answers questions you have not asked, so you will not ask the ones that matter. Number 6. Tiora. Tiora is the beautiful one. Native New Zealand botanicals, kawakawa, manuka, horopito, gorgeous Maori-inspired design, a premium price, and a story about this land in every direction. And this entry is going to sting the well-meaning shopper the same way the free-range chicken entry stung, because Tiora is what happens when marketing discovers indigeneity. Behind the koru and the native leaves, the Consumer NZ survey put Tiora among the brands whose bags rely on PLA, the industrially compostable only plastic, steeping in your 100-degree water. The premium natural brand, wrapped in the imagery of the Ngahere, delivers its native botanicals through a synthetic polymer, and the packaging song never mentions the plastic verse. And ask the deeper sourcing question. A pinch of kawakawa rides atop a base of conventional commodity tea grown nowhere near Aotearoa, blended and bagged at industrial scale. The native botanical is the garnish, mate. The product is the same global commodity leaf as everything else on the shelf, at twice the price, because the garnish is doing the marketing. When a brand borrows the manner of this land's plants and this land's imagery, the contents of the bag ought to live up to the korowai it is wearing, and a squint at the fine print says it does not. Subscribe to show that these videos do help and do make sense. Number 5. Dilma. Dilma is the Sri Lankan family tea company, and credit where credit is due, its single-origin Ceylon story is more honest than most of the aisle. The family is real, and the tea is real tea. So why is it at number 5? Because the Consumer NZ survey found Dilma's bags in New Zealand, sealed with polypropylene, ordinary oil-based plastic, the same heat seal plastic as the cheapest brands, in the bags of a company that markets itself on purity and craftsmanship. The premium story stops at the bag seal, and the bag seal is where the boiling water is. And Dilma gives us the right moment to talk about what the tea plant itself does. No factory required, because Camellia sinensis is a botanical vacuum cleaner. The tea bush naturally accumulates aluminium from acidic soils, concentrating it in its leaves, and older, coarser leaves carry the most. It concentrates fluoride the same way, again worst in the old, mature leaves. And here is why that matters for every budget blend in this video. Cheap tea is made from exactly those older, coarser, machine-harvested leaves, because the tender young tips cost money. Studies overseas of cheap supermarket blends have found fluoride levels where a heavy tea drinker, the 4 to 6 cup Kiwi kind, brushes against recommended daily limits from the tea alone, a documented concern for bones and teeth called skeletal and dental fluorosis at the extremes. Lead 2 settles on tea leaves from soil and air in industrial regions, and testing programs overseas have repeatedly flagged it in teas from heavily industrialized growing areas. None of this is a Dilma scandal. None of it appears on any label in the country, and all of it scales with one simple variable the marketing never mentions. Leaf grade. The cheaper the leaf, the older the leaf, and the older the leaf, the heavier its cargo. Number 4. Twinings. 300 years of London heritage on the box, and the box does look lovely on the bench. Twinings is owned by Associated British Foods, a multinational conglomerate with interests from sugar to fast fashion, and the New Zealand sold standard bags appeared in that same Consumer NZ survey with polypropylene in the heat seal, with some formats using crimped closures or PLA instead. So the 300-year-old craft brand seals its everyday bags with the same plastic as the budget boxes, and charges you double for the heritage. But use the Twinings entry to learn the blending trick, because the big heritage houses perfected it. English breakfast is not a place, mate. Earl Grey is not a farm. These are recipes, blended from dozens of anonymous estates across multiple countries, adjusted season by season so the flavor never changes, even as the sourcing changes completely. The romance on the box is geographic, the product is logistic, and when investigations anywhere in the world raise questions about pesticides on estates in the big producing regions, the blend structure means no big brand can, or will, tell you whether that estate's leaves are in your box. Untraceability is not an accident of the blending system. It is the system, and it wears a royal warrant beautifully. Number 3. Choicer. The orange box. If you grew up in this country, someone you love made you tea from the orange box, and this one will feel personal, because Choicer has been the people's cuppa here for over a century. So the file. Choicer long ago passed out of local hands into the multinational carousel, spending years in the Unilever empire before being passed along again to offshore brand owners, and the Consumer NZ survey recorded its bags as sealed with a thermoplastic the distributor did not further specify. Unspecified plastic, mate. In the nation's nostalgic cuppa, the brand that sponsored your childhood could not tell the consumer watchdog precisely what melts shut in the bag your nana dunks twice and squeezes. And Choicer is the right place to say the quiet thing about the whole commodity tea system, because the orange box sits on top of it. The global bulk tea market that fills every budget and mid-market blend in this video runs on plantation economics in a handful of countries, and the reporting out of those industries, on wages, on conditions, on the gap between certification logos and field reality, has been grim for decades, in the same way the Italian tomato reporting was grim. The $2 box and the $4 box exist because somebody, somewhere, at the bottom of that chain, is paid almost nothing. We did this arithmetic with the 99-cent tin tomatoes. It holds in the tea aisle too. When the price looks like a miracle, the miracle is someone else's wage. Number 2. Lipton. The biggest tea brand on planet Earth. The yellow label seen in every dairy and every supermarket in this country. Two things put Lipton at number 2. First, the pesticide file. In 2012, Greenpeace published laboratory testing of Lipton-branded teas purchased in China and reported residues of multiple pesticides, including substances banned for use on tea, findings the company disputed while the story circled the world. Further testing of major brands in India in 2014 found residues including DDT across the industry's big names. The brand's answer, then and always, was that products meet the legal standards of the markets where they are sold. You have heard this old grandpa on legal standards before. Legal limits are set substance by substance, but a heavy tea drinker takes her cup with a cocktail of residues, several times a day, for 50 years, and nobody's standard anywhere on earth tests the cocktail. Second, the ownership, because it is this channel's favorite pattern wearing its boldest costume yet. Unilever, after a century, sold its global tea business, Lipton included, in 2022, to CVC Capital Partners, a private equity firm, mate. The world's biggest tea brand, the daily habit of 1 billion people, is now a leveraged asset in a Luxembourg-based buyout fund's portfolio, being optimized for resale. Every efficiency found between the plantation and your cup, in leaf grade, in bag material, in blend cost, belongs to that project now. You are not the customer of a grocer anymore. You are the yield on an asset, and the yellow label smiles exactly as warmly as it ever did. And since the title of this video used the word cancer, let this entry carry the fact that applies to every single cup in the country, whatever the brand. In 2016, the International Agency for Research on Cancer, the same WHO body from our sausage video, evaluated the drinking of very hot beverages, anything above about 65 degrees, and classified the habit itself as Group 2A, probably carcinogenic to humans, based on evidence linking scalding hot drinks to cancer of the esophagus. Not the tea, mate, the temperature. The leaf was acquitted and the impatience was charged. It costs nothing to let the cup stand 3 or 4 minutes until it drops below scalding. Your tongue has been begging you for this your whole life anyway, and it is the single most evidence-backed change any tea drinker watching this can make. No brand will ever print that on a box, because patience, famously, has no barcode. Number 1. Bell. It had to be Bell, New Zealand's tea since 1898, the self-declared national cuppa, the brand with the silver fern practically steeped into it, and the biggest seller in the country, which by the iron rule of this channel means the system's problems are its problems at national scale. So, quickly, the ledger. The Consumer NZ survey recorded Bell Originals bags as heat-sealed with polypropylene, ordinary plastic in the nation's favorite tea, meeting your boiling water millions of times a day. The leaf inside is globally sourced commodity blend, with everything that means for leaf grade, fluoride and aluminium accumulation, residue opacity, and plantation economics. And the ownership, because there is always an ownership story, and this is the saddest one. Bell, New Zealand's tea, was sold in 2018 into the empire of JDE Peet's, the Dutch-headquartered global coffee and tea conglomerate. The brand that built itself for over a century on being ours, the fern, the heritage, the national identity in a teacup, sends its profits to Amsterdam, and the box does not mention it any more than Watties mentions Chicago, or Tegel mentions Manila. Every aisle, old friends. Every single aisle, the same story. The more loudly the label sings about New Zealand, the further away the money sleeps. And scale, as always, is what turns a product decision into a public health decision. Bell pours through the mugs of this nation at a volume no other brand approaches, in smoko rooms and hospital wards and marae kitchens, and every bark from the Hokianga to Riverton. When the market leader seals its bags with polypropylene, that is not one company's packaging preference. That is the daily plastic exposure of a nation, chosen in a boardroom, defaulted into millions of households, and never once put to the people drinking it. The fold seal exists. The plastic-free bag exists. The loose leaf pot never stopped existing. The technology to give New Zealand its national cuppa without melting plastic into it is a century old and costs buttons, and the biggest brand in the country, owned in Amsterdam, has simply not been made to bother. So make them bother, mate. You know how by now. The shelf is a ballot box and it is open every day of the week. Bell, number 1. And now put the kettle back on, because here are the 5 that earn a place beside it. The first one to buy, Zealong. Zealong is the one that should make this whole country proud. Just outside Hamilton, in the Waikato, sits New Zealand's only commercial tea estate, growing actual Camellia sinensis in Kiwi soil, and doing it certified organic. Stop and appreciate what that single fact demolishes. Every dark question in this video, the anonymous blending, the plantation labor economics, the industrial region lead, the residue opacity, all of it exists because tea comes from far away and changes hands 10 times. Zealong's tea comes from one place, and you can drive there, take the tour, and stand among the actual bushes. Organic certification deals with the pesticide question at the root, literally. Single estate growing deals with traceability absolutely. New Zealand's clean air and unindustrialized soils deal with the heavy metal question about as well as this planet currently allows. It is premium tea at a properly premium price. The estate's loose leaf is world class and has won international awards, and if you want the safest cup this video can point to, it is leaf from a Waikato hillside in a pot your grandmother would recognize. The second one to buy, Storm & India. Storm & India is a New Zealand company built by 2 sisters, and it earns its place with one word the big brands cannot say: organic. The range is certified organic, which means the pesticide file that haunts the commodity aisle is answered by an independent audit trail rather than a public relations department, and the sourcing is the kind of named, considered, small-scale purchasing that the blend houses abandoned a century ago. The packaging takes the plastic question seriously rather than treating it as a nuisance to be greenwashed. You pay boutique prices, and you get what the price claims to buy, which, after 11 entries of the opposite, feels almost disorienting. There is a structural lesson in the sisters' operation worth 30 seconds of your time. Small tea companies cannot hide behind blends because they do not buy enough leaf to blend anonymously. Their reputation rides on each individual purchase decision, each grower relationship, each harvest, which means the incentive structure runs exactly opposite to the giants. The multinational profits by making the tea untraceable and the story vivid. The boutique survives by making the tea traceable and letting the story tell itself. Same aisle, opposite physics, and once you see it, you can never unsee it. In tea or in anything else this series has covered. The third one to buy, Libertine Blends. Libertine Blends is a small Wellington outfit doing herbal teas the way the herbal wall pretends to, New Zealand blended, with transparency about every botanical in the bag and plastic-free packaging worn as a founding principle rather than a retrofitted apology. For the herbal drinker rattled by the pyrrolizidine alkaloid business, small producers who name their growers and their ingredients are precisely the risk reduction the anonymous boxes cannot offer, because contamination hides in anonymity and shrivels under sunlight. Small, named, local, and openly sourced beats big, vague, global, and beautiful every time this channel has ever run the comparison, in every aisle, and the herbal shelf is no exception. One caution that belongs here precisely because I am recommending herbal teas at all. Herbal does not mean harmless, from anyone, including the good producers. Some botanicals interact with medications, licorice root can nudge blood pressure, St. John's wort tangles with half the pharmacy, and anyone pregnant, breastfeeding, or on regular prescriptions should run their daily herbal habit past a doctor or pharmacist once, just once, and then enjoy the cupboard in peace. The good brands will tell you this themselves on their websites, which is, come to think of it, one more way you can tell the good brands from the rest. Honest sellers name their products' limits. Marketing departments name only its magic. The fourth one to buy, Chanui. And here is the entry for the real world, because this old grandpa knows perfectly well that most households are not paying single estate prices for the daily brew. Chanui is a New Zealand family-founded tea company, and when Consumer NZ went asking its plastic questions, Chanui stood out for something wonderfully simple. Several of its blends, the English breakfast among them, come in bags sealed by folding, not by melting plastic. Folded paper, mate. The technology is origami. It is 100 years old. It works perfectly, and it proves in one stroke that every polypropylene seal in this video was a choice, not a necessity. Chanui sits at an honest everyday price. The company is the local underdog in an aisle of multinationals, and choosing it costs a family almost nothing extra. If this video changes just one thing in your trolley, the fold-sealed local box in place of the plastic-sealed conglomerate box is the easiest swap on offer. The fifth one to buy. Teetotal. Teetotal is a New Zealand loose-leaf specialist, and it stands here for the oldest answer of all. Loose-leaf tea, a teapot, and a strainer. No bag, no seal, no polypropylene, no PLA, no bag paper, no epichlorohydrin wet-strength chemistry. Nothing between the leaf and the water at all, because there is no bag to build. Loose leaf is also, gram for gram of actual tea, routinely cheaper than premium bags, because you are not paying for bag folding machinery and string. Buy from a specialist who names origins and grades, brew it in the pot, and you have opted out of the entire packaging debate this video spent 11 entries on. Your great-grandmother did this every day of her life without thinking, mate. Sometimes the safest technology is the one we already threw away. The pot brings back something else too, something no laboratory can measure but every grandparent recognizes. The ceremony, the warming of the pot, the spoonful per person and one for the pot, the waiting, the second cup that always tastes different from the first. Tea in a bag in a mug at a desk is caffeine logistics. Tea from a pot is 10 minutes of your one life, taken back on purpose. This channel deals in additives and ownership structures because somebody has to, but the deepest adulteration the modern food industry ever pulled off was convincing 3 generations that convenience and food are the same thing. They are not. The pot knows the difference. Your nana knew the difference. The strainer costs $6, mate, and it comes with your afternoons attached. So here is where this old grandpa lands, with the kettle grumbling behind me. Nobody needs to give up the cuppa. Tea itself, the actual leaf, honestly grown and simply brewed, remains one of the gentlest pleasures on this earth, and the antioxidant science on plain tea is genuinely friendly. What needs giving up is the assumption, the lovely lazy assumption that something so familiar must be innocent, because familiarity is exactly where the modern food industry hides its shortcuts. Plastic met boiling water in 1 billion kiwi cups this week, and no label anywhere said so. So the rules, one last time. Loose leaf beats bags. Fold sealed beats heat sealed. Organic beats within legal limits. Named estates beat English breakfast. Local ownership beats a fern on a multinational's box. And a squeeze of the bag against the spoon, that ancient national gesture, mate, presses the last of the seal's chemistry into your nana's cup, so let the bag drip in peace if a bag it must be. The supermarkets will not tell you any of this. The buyout funds in Luxembourg and Amsterdam certainly will not. So it falls, one more time, to a grumpy old grandpa on the internet, and I do not take that responsibility lightly. I am a grandpa. And grandpas worry. Look after yourself.